Perhaps you've recently played Star Wars Jedi Survivor and now you're just itching for another Star Wars game to play that fills the void. You want something with memorable characters, a strong plot, unforgettable moments in a world that just transports you to the Star Wars universe like no other. And so you've gone on search for one and you've come across this interesting looking title called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. But the more you look at it, the more you realise it's quite old. Made in 2003, the graphics are a little bit dated, the gameplay maybe comes across as quite archaic, and I would understand why you have those concerns. But the fact is, even after 20 years, on the eve of its 20th anniversary, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is still regarded as one of, or if not, the best Star Wars game ever made. And not just that, but one of the best role-playing games of all time too. And to top it off, there's a remake of the game in the works, so it really does beg the question. Whether you've only played it once or twice a long time ago, or you're completely brand new, is Knights of the Old Republic worth playing in 2023, 20 years after its release on the original Xbox? And my answer is absolutely and unequivocally yes. Now, saying unequivocally yes is a rather blanket statement, and it doesn't really answer any of the questions as to why you should play the game. But I am almost certain that if you've been in the Star Wars community for any kind of period of time, you've probably heard the name Revan, and you've probably heard that KOTOR has this incredible story-driven experience that has earth-shattering moments that are going to blow your mind and change you as a human being. Okay, so that might be exaggerated a little bit, but at its core, the story is where Knights of the Old Republic shines, and that is mainly why the game is lauded. The plot. It is unanimously regarded as one of the best Star Wars stories ever made, and for good reason. You will start Knights of the Old Republic being given the opportunity to create an almost completely customizable character, and you can choose if you want to roleplay as a badass gunslinging lunatic or a traditional goody-two-shoes Jedi, or perhaps you just want to play the game as yourself. You want to insert yourself into the protagonist and connect with the story and the characters on a deeper level and make this story more personal to you. These options from the get-go are yours to choose from, and once that's done, the game doesn't hold back because it throws you right into the deep end. Instantly, straight away, you are under attack by the Sith, and it is your duty to find an important Jedi and explore this massive ecumenopolis of a planet. This place is absolutely littered with side quests, characters, and a fascinating societal hierarchy that, funnily enough, you must explore in layers the further you go. And this introduction subtly gives you the pieces of a puzzle that's going to allow you to kind of paint together a picture of what kind of story this game is going to tell as you move forward with the adventure. And the truth is, this game doesn't really ever slow down. The more you continue to play, the more you're just going to be sucked into this magical world. As you progress, more characters are going to join you, you're going to explore more incredible planets with rich histories and issues of their own, and these stories all just kind of unfold right in front of you, and you're going to be at the center of them. Knights of the Old Republic gives you such an interpersonal experience with the Star Wars universe that you honestly can't find anywhere else really other than the sequel to this game. Unlike so many other Star Wars stories, this game is about being on the ground. It's about the individuals and the ordinary folk of the Star Wars universe, and the people that you meet on this journey really do leave a lasting impact. And while that's often going to be the NPCs, what's really special are the companions that you're going to bond with as you go. Every single one of these mainline companions offers so much depth to the world of this game. They all have their own views, their own morals, their own conflicts, and they're all going to be intertwined within the overarching narrative at play, which is the Jedi and Sith, as well as you as the protagonist. Every single one of these companions just has layers and depth to themselves, which just enriches the world around you and the experiences that you'll have with them specifically in certain situations. For example, you'll meet the grizzled war veteran Canderous Ordo, a Mandalorian warrior turned mercenary who values honor above anything else but now has really no goal in life. And every time you speak to him, he just has a battle story of wars gone by, and he'll offer you a perspective that the others just won't have. But on the flip side, you'll meet Bastila Shan, a Jedi that the Order places so much of their hopes upon, whose forced maturity at a young age makes her stubborn and arrogant, and yet as you go on and the more you learn about her, the more you realise it's just a facade to protect herself from a world that she really doesn't know how to navigate. Unlike other games like Star Wars Battlefront or Jedi Knight Jedi Academy or even Republic Commando, you really get in depth into the psychological aspect of each of these individuals, and the writing is so top notch, as are the performances, that there's never really any point that you don't believe it. And some of these characters will even have their own individual storylines that you can go down if you so choose. And some of these storylines are so good that I personally have had more entertainment with some of these companions than I have from entire video game plotlines, and that is truly a testament to the raw quality of the storytelling. But that is just the companions. That doesn't even consider the overarching narrative of the game. Not only will you unlock the mysteries of the two antagonists, Darth Malak and Darth Revan, but you will learn more about yourself. You will learn more about Star Wars and its long-dead civilizations that controlled it in ancient times past. You will discover the lore and the societal layering of unique planets and species, and every single moment within this story just does an incredible job of making this feel like a living, breathing galaxy that is being affected by the overarching narrative on both the grander scales and, as I mentioned, those smaller, more personal scales. But with that said, because of the depth of this game, it allows it to do something that perhaps other stories within the Star Wars universe can't really touch upon with the same level of nuance, and that is the more philosophical side of Star Wars. Knights of the Old Republic will introduce new ideas and new perspectives that you just wouldn't really have had before. For example, you'll meet a fascinating character called Jolee Bindo, who has such an interesting perspective on the Jedi, the Sith, the Force, and love, and he constantly leaves you thinking and asking your own questions about a universe that you probably have never even thought about. And then, to top it all off, if you really want to, you can go down the road of romance. Many of these companions aren't only there to tell stories, but they're there to become truly intertwined with you on an emotional level and impact the plot in their own special way. And if you play your cards right, perhaps you'll end up falling in love, and they'll end up falling in love with you. But of course, romantic love isn't quite the Jedi way, so what impact will that have? Like I said, those philosophical questions are really delved into with a lot more nuance in this story. And that is why Knights of the Old Republic is regarded as one of the best role-playing games of all time. Even compared to some games today, the sheer depth of its storytelling, its thematic weight, and the personal relatability to even the smallest of stories being told within this grander story is almost unrivaled. But, you know, I get it. Yeah, the story may be epic, it may be awesome, but the gameplay looks a little bit dated, and to tell you the truth, you're probably right. However, there's an element to its gameplay that is kind of like a double-edged sword. Knights of the Old Republic's gameplay is turn-based. It's inherently very slow-paced, and it's more about how you approach a situation versus how the situation actually is. There is no fast-paced, high-octane action in this one. You're not going to have to be pressing 50 million different buttons in different combinations to make your Jedi do a flip and slice someone's head off. And the fact is, Knights of the Old Republic is more about the psychological aspect of warfare than the combat itself. More often than not, it will come down to the equipment that you are using. It will come down to how you choose to spec your character statistically. At times, it will even come down to who you choose to bring along with you and how they will kind of work around your skills with theirs. This game will mainly challenge you to go into battle first with a plan, and then it will challenge you to enact that plan in the heat of the moment in a turn-based scenario. But like I said, it is a double-edged sword, because I am aware of people that don't actually like games where you have to be really hands-on and you really have to be in the heat of the moment, spamming certain buttons in certain ways at the right intervals and having that mind-muscle connection to a controller. KOTOR in itself, as I said, is slower, it's psychological. These combat encounters and these battle scenarios are more about how you use your brain versus how well you can use a controller or a keyboard. And it really doesn't matter whether you want to go gung-ho with lightsabers and force powers and absolutely murder your way through the story, or whether you want to be more subtle and use traps and guns and grenades, it will always be slower paced, and you'll always be able to pause in the middle of the battle and analyze and assess the situation so you can plan and implement your strategies in real time in a way that more hands-on action games just would not give you. But that's not to say the game is easy, because you will be given a variety of difficulty options to choose from, and they can range from easy, which kind of just makes the game a walking, talking simulator, to the harder difficulties that can be really, really challenging, and they will force you to plan those battles ahead and have everything prepared before you get involved. And while on the surface the gameplay might seem rather simplistic, there is a plethora of options to choose from. The build paths you can choose, the weapons you can use, the feats and skills that you acquire will allow you to have such a variety in how you do choose to approach every single situation. And in my experience, I have spoken to so many people who have told me that they played KOTOR for the first few hours and the combat system just didn't interest them. But as they got further in and they gave it more of a shot, they began to realise that it actually wasn't that bad. And I implore anyone that perhaps has some reservations about the game's combat and the gameplay itself to just give it a little bit of time for all of these options and unique pathways to open up to you before you decide whether or not it's for you. However, I don't think I need to sit here and tell you that the game is beautiful and you need to buy it for the visuals alone, because graphically this game is not going to compare to anything of the past 15 years. Sadly, the Knights of the Old Republic franchise narrowly missed out that generational leap of the PS2 in the original Xbox to the 360 in the PS3, which was quite staggering on a technological level. But with that said, the game doesn't look bad in any way. Find a game from 2003 that looks better than Knights of the Old Republic. I challenge you to do so. And yeah, if you boot up this game and the first thing you're expecting is a wonderful visual experience and that's some kind of core pillar that makes a gaming experience for you, then yeah, you might not become engrossed with it. But the scale of its worlds, the character models, enemy models, and monster models, and the general effects, it's not something you're going to look at and go, oh my god, this is so disgusting, my eyes, I can't play it. But don't expect to sit there and go, oh my god, this is the most beautiful thing ever. Temper your expectations and always keep in mind that this is a 20-year-old game. And if anything, appreciate the charm and the beauty of something that came before that paved the way for the games we do have today. But what I will say is beautiful though, and I will always support this, is the music. Star Wars is made by the soundtrack. Since the very first movie in '77, without the music of Star Wars, the gravitas wouldn't quite be there. And Knights of the Old Republic will not let you down. This game features some of the most incredibly written scores and some of the most beautiful gaming musical experiences you will ever have. It is totally and utterly tonally Star Wars, but at the same time, every musical piece has its own flair and has its own magic that at times just makes you sit there and just listen. And I will always say, trust me on this, if not anything, experiencing the themes and the music of this game alone in the context of where they're supposed to be is worth the price of admission alone. And the wonderful thing is that if you enjoy this game and you become fascinated and you become engrossed by this story, then there's Knights of the Old Republic 2. Which for me just builds upon this game in every way, shape or form and is the superior of the two. But that's for another video. You then also have the comic books and the novels and the Old Republic MMO, if that's your cup of tea. And then of course we have the remake. The Knights of the Old Republic remake has been in development since 2021, and it's had a fair few issues in its development cycle, and while I've been privy to some of the details, publicly we don't really know anything about it. But I highly recommend to anybody to play the original version of KOTOR before you play the remake. Whether you're sitting on the fence of should I wait for the remake or just play the original if you can. And even if you don't like the original from a gameplay perspective or a graphical perspective, you will then have the remake to sort of cover you if that's the case. But if you can get along with the gameplay and you do get along with the fact that it is an older game, you are going to have one of the best role-playing experiences ever. And when the remake does come along, whether it's good or bad, you're going to have such an appreciation for what came before in a way that you just will not have if you don't play the original. And for most of you, you have absolutely no excuse because you can play Knights of the Old Republic pretty much anywhere. Whether you want to sit down at your desk and play at the place where I think it should be played and where it's probably at its best, and that is the PC, or whether you want to play the game on the go on your mobile or Nintendo Switch, or even lay in bed and play on your Xbox, you've got the opportunity to do so. And surprisingly, the only place you can't play the original Knights of the Old Republic is the PlayStation, which is odd. But I've personally played it on pretty much every single platform at this point, and they all run smoothly and they all run well, so you're not going to have a worser experience, you're just going to have less options on, say, the console ports. And to make it even better, honestly, I swear to God, every time I've ever looked at this game on the Steam store, it's on sale in some way or another. So no matter where you're thinking of playing it, you're probably going to get it for pretty cheap. But there we have it. These are all the reasons why you should be playing Knights of the Old Republic in 2023. You have my opinion, so it's time to make your decision. Now, before we wrap up this video, as always, I have a question for you guys that I'd love for you to answer. What is your favourite Star Wars experience ever? What is that one moment within this grand universe that is your favourite and the one you hold on to and cherish the most? Let me know down in the comment section below because I'm excited to read these. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please do hit the like button because it helps me out a great deal, and share it with people you know if you think the video is worth it, and there really is no better time to be a KOTOR fan. And so if you haven't, perhaps consider subscribing to join the biggest growing Knights of the Old Republic community on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, may the Force be with you. Always.